getting back to the Richards hire as assistant, your staff last year, Arneal had coached in the NHL before. Otherwise, the guys had not coached in the NHL. And none of them had been head coaches. Were there times last year where it became apparent that a guy who had that experience would have been useful?
It's hard to say. I think they were all growing last year, so certainly maybe there were times when you needed or you would have liked to have heard a more experienced voice. But I mean, I think coaching was a strength of our organization last year. Coaching at the NHL level was a strength last year, and it's going to continue to be a strength.
What feels different about this year, if indeed you're more likely to trade the pick? What is different about this year than past years? Is it just feeling in need of finding somebody with an immediate impact? You feel like you have enough youth through the past drafts and you need more veteran? What's different, I guess, as you approach this draft compared to others?
I think a number of things. I think last year, if I compare it to last year, we had the 4th pick, and we were pretty locked in on Ryan Johansson and didn't want to let that one get away. This year, we've had 2 seasons of failure, and there's probably a more stark need, given where our franchise is, to try and do something immediate. So those are the 2 things that come to mind. We're picking 8th, so it's a little bit lower than last year. So it's not quite the impact player like we hope Ryan's going to be.
Richards, one of the things you've mentioned that just his teams have had good power plays. How important was that when you and Scott were assessing candidates as far as that, besides having the NHL head coaching experience?
It was very important. We definitely wanted somebody that has had success on the power play somewhere, and preferably at the NHL level. And we talked to 3 or 4 people that fit that category, and Todd was one of them. It was very important. We need to. It's no secret. And part of it is internally we have to get better, or we have to get better players to do it. But you know, and new ideas, new approach will help.
Talk about Scott Arneal's input on that hire.
It was really, he took the ball. I really believe as a general manager, the coach really has to be responsible for that hire. He's got to work with them every day. So he interviewed all the candidates, and then he gave me Todd's name. And I had known Todd before, so I called him and interviewed him for an hour or so. And after that, we were both on the same page.
Could you take us through Friday on draft? You've been through it before, but take us through what it's been like. I mean, just the, I guess, the excitement and just what is it like on draft day for you?
Well, it's funny because the last few have been the Fridays have been quiet. Even going back a few years ago when we traded for RJ on the draft floor, that day was very quiet. We'd sort of set it up, and you weren't sure it was going to happen, but it wasn't like we had agreed on Friday morning that we were going to do it. And then if I go back, I think a couple of years ago, we actually traded the John Moore draft. We traded, I think, pick 16 for 26 and 37, and that was a day where I called Garth Snow in the morning and I said, you know, here's an interesting idea for you. I never heard back from him until we got to the draft. So that day can be very quiet. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiousness, especially if you think you have something going on. And even if you don't, you've got a lot of excitement about making the pick. So usually there's more phone calls, more talk on Thursday and Wednesday than there is on Friday so far. Doesn't seem to make sense, but that's the way it's been. I think people, after a while, people just wait to get to the floor and start talking to you. So you get there a couple hours early, and certainly the teams that you've been talking to, you make sure you have a moment with that general manager to see what they're thinking.
Do you feel, I mean, because of the, as you said, the past few seasons of failure, do you feel any more pressure just to do something? I mean, do you feel like, is it going to be harder for you to, as the week goes on, if you're thinking, you know, oh my God, we got to...
No, because there's an opportunity after this, in my view, and the opportunity is, this is the first opportunity to improve the team. And then the next opportunity will be July 1. And then the next opportunity will, after that, will be during the summer, after everyone figures out, after sort of July 1's gone, and what they have, what they don't have. Maybe there are teams pressed against the cap after July 1, and they have to make a move. So there's more than one opportunity here. This is an important one, though, and I do feel a heightened motivation to try and do something here.
How hand in hand do July 1st free agency and this weekend go in terms of, I mean, if you get something done this weekend that you want, how much does it slow down what you do on July 1, or will you still be active regardless? Or does it change what you're looking for in July 1?
Yeah, it can change. It can change what your needs are and what you're motivated to do. I still think we're going to try and be active no matter what happens this weekend. But until we see where the pieces fall and what we have, then you just can't predict them.
There's certainly more skilled defensemen available for free agency than there are centermen this year. Does that tend to suggest that you are in more pursuit of a centerman at the draft than a defenseman and take a chance on free agency to get a defenseman?
Well, I think there's a scarcity of centers available by trade too,
Yeah.
but the kind that you want. So, no, I don't think it changes what we're thinking about when we get to the draft. Those are two areas of need, and if something comes our way in one of those areas, we won't, question it. We'll make the move, and as long as it makes sense to us and we're excited about it.
Obviously, getting a center, you've talked long and hard about trying to get another quality center in here. But beyond that, if you were able to achieve that objective, how would that also help in the development of a kid like Johansson, as far as where you would play him, even if it came through 8 games and you thought you may have to go back? How much bringing a guy would help ease the transition for Ryan?
It would help because there's not as much pressure on him to try and play higher in the lineup. And right now our goal, no matter if we hire another center or not, is to start him slowly. If he makes the team, he's got to make the team and then start him slowly. But certainly if you have the people in the right spots, and we've seen that a little bit with our defense. If you put people too high, your team just struggles. And having a top player would put Ryan in the right spot, and would probably put Barrett in the right spot, and then you've got Vermette who can move anywhere. Who I think is a top 6 forward, but he can move maybe to the wing or maybe center the third line. So it would give Scott a lot more flexibility and put people in the right spots.
Scott, what's the most important thing you look for in a player, whether you add them through the draft or free agency or trade?
Right now we want to add top talent. I mean, there's character, there's skill, and hockey sense, I think, are the 3 things, but we want to add a top 6 forward or a top 4 defenseman. That's what we're looking for. And certainly if we're going to draft one at the 8th pick, we have to be able to project that they're going to get there someday.
Talk about that a little bit with evaluating this draft. There's a kid from Ohio, Tyler Biggs, big character, but some question marks, some other places. How much emphasis do you put on the character part versus the on ice, what you can see and all that?
Equal for me. I mean, you can't. This game's too hard. Playing against the best players in the world, you just have to be able to deal with success. You have to be able to deal with failure, because you're going to fail. You're going to have bad days, and that's where the character, I believe, brings you through. And certainly with the first pick, you just have to make sure they have character.
Also, when you see a team like St. John's that's loaded with a lot of talent, how do you differentiate how good they are versus just being surrounded by so much talent? Is that one of the more difficult things to do?
That's a difficult thing to do. Are they propped up by the talent around them, or are they driving the bus? And, that's an age-old question. I think teams have struggled with that one forever, especially in hockey. The players can look better on good teams, and we have to sort that out.
Yeah, hypothetically, if you got a top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman, would that, does that take the team to the level that you think it should be? We've talked about this ad nauseum, need a center, but if you got those guys, is the team around it then ready to make that step?
Well, there's got to be internal improvement here too, and we need players to play better that have been here over the last 2 or 3 years. So I look at it as steps. And you keep adding little pieces that make you better. And if we were to get a center and a defenseman, that makes us better. Now, how else can we do it? Does Steve Mason start to play better? Does Mark Mathot become a top 4 defenseman? Does Chris Russell become a top 4 defenseman? Does Jake Voracek go from 47 points to 65 points? Those are all things we need to have happen for us to be where we really want to get going.
It's interesting that you talk about bringing in talent because you lost some leadership, some players not being renewed that could be considered leaders. Does the fact that you're not looking to bring in leadership say something about the way maybe Nash and some of the other guys in the room have taken ownership of the team?
They're all growing. Yeah, I see growth in Rick. I certainly see growth in RJ. Some of the other younger players, a player like Derek Dorsett is grabbing more a piece of the team. So I think it's something we've tried here, and it's been difficult for some of those players. Chris Clark or Ethan. Ethan wasn't healthy last year, so he couldn't really grab that as much as we wanted them to. And so we've tried that, and it hasn't worked to the full extent that we thought possible. I thought Chris Clark was a big addition in the room. So I just see more of a leadership group within our team right now that they've matured into that.
Pressures on you strictly from the business side, for a team that needs something to sell. How much pressure is there for you to get something done and a name added to the roster after the way attendance sort of dipped last year, and you can't, status quo obviously is not going to sell more tickets going into next season?
I don't feel that pressure, Aaron. I think it'd be nice to have that, but you can't operate a team just to try and go get a name, because what's going to sell this team is a good hockey team to the market. And I have to make sure, it's my job, I'm responsible to make sure we have a good hockey team. And that's what's going to sell the team to the market.
What are your emails like? What kind of input are you getting from the public? I mean, are people angry? Are they apathetic? Are they patient? Can you describe what that is?
Well, generally people only say nice things to your face. So I don't get a lot of emails, or I think our ticket reps get that. I certainly get them during the year, and that's really born out of disappointment with the performance of the team, and it's a bit of an emotional response. So I get those emails certainly during the year, but I don't really get them in the office.
If you're in a restaurant or somewhere that people are nice to you,
yes.
they're not.
Without fail.
They're not throwing
as much
food
as
at you.
Circling around to that leadership issue, it seemed like the thought in the past was that this team and the players who'd been a part of this team for a while didn't have a lot of experience winning. And outside of RJ, I don't think you brought up a lot of guys who have experience winning. The fact that your leadership core doesn't have that experience, but can take over this team anyway, what's that say about that group?
Well, we have to help them get there. I think as we mature as a franchise, you'll see more and more players that have had success come through, and the first name that pops to my mind is Matt Keller, who's playing the Memorial Cup. Steve's won it. These players have won at levels, they just haven't won at the NHL level. And I understand that's a different animal, and we've got to help them understand what it takes to get there. I think a guy like Rick, you don't have to tell him what it takes to get there. I mean, he's seen it at high levels, and he's more committed than ever to trying to make it happen here.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.